did not have control of the city anymore. So the only plan they thought, I guess, was to take the guns away from the people. Heed the warning of what this was. You know, this is like Australia. All of a sudden, boom, they got our rights.
Okay, this is a Browning 270. It's my deer rifle. And this is a Savage 7mm 08. This belongs to my grandson. And this was the two rifles that they confiscated. We left about 6 o'clock in the morning. We started across Lake Pontchartrain. As we came out under the drawbridge, a St. Tammany Parish sheriff's boat run up with their lights flashing, told us to pull over. So we pulled over, and they pulled in about 20 foot from us. And they had 5 guys in the boat, and they had assault weapons, and they pointed them at us and asked if we had any weapons on board. I told them yes, we had 2 weapons. They said, get at the back of the boat with your hands in the air. We're coming aboard to search. They got the guns. They opened the case and looked at them. I was standing at the back of the boat with my hands in the air. Automatic rifles pointed at you. I mean, you don't have any choice. I mean, they didn't just have them pointed from their hip. They had them up at their shoulder pointed, you know. I mean, they weren't playing. They asked where we were going. Told them we were contractors for Pala Interstate. We were going to New Orleans to find a route to come in with a barge. So they said, okay, we're seizing these weapons. So I said, I want a receipt for my guns. They said, no, we're not giving receipts. Said if we give receipts, we'd be out here all day writing receipts for all the weapons we've confiscated. It made me angry when they told me to go get a lawyer if I wanted my guns back. That's when I really got angry. They didn't care what your rights were. They were going to deny them. It's not America as we've known it before. It's changing.
Emotions were raw.
This is America. Has your neighborhood ever been invaded by state troopers from another state, sent here by God knows whom?
Many of the people continuing to stay in New Orleans were told time was running out. Ashton O'Dwyer is an attorney, but says he'll defy any order requiring him to evacuate.
I will leave when I am dead, okay? Let them be warned. They come to my house, they try to evict me, they try to take my guns, there will be gunfire.
With his house intact and with plenty of food and water, O'Dwyer cannot understand why folks like him are being forced to leave.
Treat me with benign neglect. Get out of my neighborhood, get out of my life, get out of my city.
And there were plenty of other fireworks as officers went door to door looking for holdouts.
It's my rights. It's a constitutional right.
The situation got extremely tense when an armed man barricaded himself, threatening to shoot. He was eventually arrested without incident.
Are we evicting these people, for God's sake? I hope.
Officers also arrested the occupants of a suspected stolen truck.
What are you doing, man? Whoa, whoa, whoa! Get out! Put your hands on the seat!
They searched it and found a stash of drugs and a handgun.
If they bring me the hand, I'll be glad to.
It may have been more calm at this neighborhood bar, but the sentiment remains the same as folks tried to figure out how to avoid the mandatory order.
People can come in and get away from the insanity and get a little normality here.
Owner Joanne Gaitis has managed to keep the place open with generators. Folks were socializing, ordering drinks, pretending everything was normal. Larry Stam says for now, this is about as good as life gets.
Where I'm going to go? I don't have no money, can't get into the bank. I can't use my ATM card. If I leave here, I'm going to be in worse shape than I'm in here. We watching TV, got a place to sleep, we have food.
You could see police and soldiers on just about every corner trying to talk sense into the remaining holdouts. But in every case we encountered, residents refused to back down.
But there's no electricity, no running water.
Didn't you ever camp in your life? Didn't you ever go wilderness camping? Do you know what that's about? That's what we're doing right now.
Paramedics tried to convince Bill Stinson to leave, but he told them to take a hike. He's worried about being separated from his dogs.
My dogs are not going into a shelter.
Okay,
they are not going away from me.
Evacuation order, and these people said, I'm not leaving. That's their prerogative. You've got the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. Nagin didn't do an emergency evacuation order until the afternoon Sunday evening right before the hurricane hit. Blanco had done one 3 or 4 days before. It was all over the media. It was in magazines. It was in the newspaper. Oh, the New Orleans is under martial law, okay? Not true. There was no martial law. They didn't have, they weren't forced to leave. They couldn't leave, but the cops took Nagin's order, and it was like opening the gates of hell and letting the dogs out. And they went berserk, and they acted like thugs. They beat people, they harassed people, they tried to run them out by any way, shape, or form. That's Patty Connie. She's in the book. She's an elderly lady. 3 California highway patrolmen came up banging on her door about the 8th of September and said, you got to leave. She said, I'm not leaving. They said, well, what are you going to do when the looters show up? She said, they had mental looter down here. But you're the only people I've seen. But if they show up, I got a gun. They said, oh, well, let her see the gun. She told us she knew she was making a mistake. She walked back in her bedroom. She got a little old pocket .32 revolver that she had. It wasn't even loaded. She came walking back. She showed it to them in the palm of her hand. They kicked her door in, tore her screen door off the hinges, and forced their way into her house. She's standing there with the video camera filming, pointing her finger at them. I don't want you in my house. Get out of my house. Leave. And all of a sudden, one of them jumps on her. He executes a takedown maneuver. He grabs her arm and slams it against the wall and drops on her. She's perp walked out of her own house. She's crying. She's saying, no, I don't want to leave. Leave me on my porch. Don't take me away from my house. They load her on a truck. They give her dogs to her. And they take her to the convention center. But within an hour of getting at the convention center, they took her to the airport. Within an hour of being at the airport, they put her on an airplane. She ended up in South Carolina at the evacuation center. She was bruised from here to her hips. This is the kind of stuff that went on down there.
That includes New Orleans, where today authorities stepped up their efforts to empty the city. Bob Woodruff is there again tonight with an extraordinary human drama unfolding. Bob?
That's true, Elizabeth, and good evening from New Orleans. Here, the police and the National Guard find themselves in a very difficult position tonight to try to carry out an order to force people from the city without actually using force. Today in New Orleans, they got a lot tougher on the holdouts.
Police department, everyone home!
Not only the flooded areas, but New Orleans' driest and wealthiest neighborhoods, too.
Police department!
The police and National Guard going street by street, house to house.
We need to make sure, too, that whenever we knock on the doors, people refuse to leave. We need to make note, call it in.
They say there are no orders to use force, just strong persuasion, sometimes entering open houses with guns drawn, and instructions to disarm anyone inside.
You say guns will be taken?
No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
That happened today in this wealthy neighborhood where homeowners had armed themselves to protect their mansions. Residents were handcuffed on the ground. In the end, police took their weapons but let them stay in their homes.
They were a little bit threatened because our weapons were bigger than their weapons.
For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city. This guard unit occupied a church, using it as a base camp. They had to leave a note because they could not get hold of the pastor to get permission.
It is surreal. Yeah, you never expect to do this in your own country.
Chris Montgomery says he'd rather be in Iraq than patrolling American neighborhoods.
Walking up and down these streets, you don't want to think about the stuff that you're going to have to do. Somebody pops around the corner.
Let me shoot an American.
Congress shall now vote for approval of H.R. 8791, the Homeland Terrorism Preparedness Bill. Said bill requests emergency response funding up to and including, this section is classified, dollars to prepare for a national level terrorist attack and or attack from classified. Funding for first responder personnel and vehicles would be doubled if said attack leads to more than 80% of national population being affected by classified.